These next three, we want to find the inverse of these given functions and then also the domain and range of the given functions. Okay, so we'll find the inverse first. So finding the inverse, we're going to change our x to a y and our f of x to an x. So we'll start with x equals 2y plus 1 all over 5. And then we want to make sure that we cross multiply. Okay, so cross and cross. So then I am left with 5 times x equals 2y plus 1. And then we're going to subtract 1 from both sides. And we're left with 2y, and then make sure that we divide by 2. All over 2 equals y. So here's my inverse function. Now to find the domain of my original function, I just have to ask myself if there's any sort of restriction, or can x be every single value? Now I know I did show in class earlier that this can also be rewritten. So we would have f of x equals 2/5 x. Running into this, let me move this over a little bit. There we go. Okay, so 2/5 x plus 1/5. So if you want to think about it like that, you can. And in this case, this is a line. If we were to graph that, we'd go up to 1/5, and then we'd go up 2 over 5, down 2 over 5, and we would have a line. So what would the domain be of that? Well, negative infinity to infinity. And some of you might right away say, okay, well, ranges as well. So yes, you can write that down. But again, range, how we find range of these functions is if you find the inverse function, ask yourself, what is the domain of the inverse? And that will be your range of the original function. All right, so let's take a look at number 4b. So this right here is telling you what the domain is. This is saying that here's your function, which is a parabola. So if you do want to have that little visualization, this is going to tell me to go back to -4, and I would draw a parabola. Okay, where the domain would usually be negative infinity to infinity, but the restriction here is saying that at -4, I'm only going to be taking from here over. I want to be greater than or equal to -4, so I'm kind of getting rid of all that. So this, though, is telling you right away what your domain is. So the domain of this given function is going to be -4 to infinity. And then to find the range of this, you can maybe look at a graph, if you can graph that, and just see that it's 0, it's starting at 0, there was no transformation, and it's going up to infinity. But if you don't see that, the other way to do this is going to be find the inverse, which we have to do anyway. Okay, so I'm going to change this so I have f of x is x, and this is y plus 4 squared. And I need to get y completely alone, so I'm going to take the square root of both sides so I can cancel out that 2. So then I'm left with the square root of x equals y plus 4. And then I'm going to subtract 4. So x minus 4 equals y. So this is my inverse function. Okay, so now if you think about this, x is under the square root sign, which it can never be, it will never be able to be a negative number. Okay, or if you were to graph this, you could go down to -4, and you have your arm, which is starting right on 0. We're just going down to -4, and we're drawing our arm. So the range of this, or I'm sorry, the domain of this would be 0 to infinity. But again, if we're looking at that x, You can take the square root of 0, but you cannot take the square root of a negative number, so it has to be greater than that. So x is, 0 to infinity. All right, and then down here, one more time, we're going to change out our y and our x's. So we'll have x equals 2y minus 3 all over y plus 4. And then we want to cross multiply. So x times y plus 4 is going to turn into xy plus 4x equals 2y minus 3. And we want to get the y's on both sides, okay? Because we need y alone. So if we do that, then we can factor it out. So this is going to turn into xy minus 2y equals, I'm going to move over my 4, so negative 4x minus 3. And now I can factor out my y. I can go out. Okay, so this becomes y times x minus 2 equals negative 4x minus 3. And the last step I have to do is divide by this entire binomial on both sides. So this cancels out. So this is my inverse function. So that goes away. Right, so now I need to find the domain of my original function. And in this case, x plus 4 is where I want to kind of look at, because if my denominator becomes 0, there will be an asymptote. This will not work out, it will be undefined. So if x plus 4 can't be 0, x cannot be negative 4. Okay, so it can be everything else though. Negative infinity to negative 4. And negative 4 to infinity. Okay, to find the range of this, you have to find the domain of your inverse. So here, if x was 2, this would become 0 and be undefined. So it can be everything but 2. So negative infinity to 2, 2 to infinity. All right, I'm going to go finish these up in a second.